Answering MCAT questions in under 60 seconds. Which of the following best explains how skeletal muscle cells ensure that action potentials lead to coordinated calcium release throughout the fiber? A says T-tubules transmit electrical impulses deep into the muscle fiber, triggering calcium release from nearby sarcoplasmic reticulum. Okay, well that sounds actually correct. Okay, because what happens, right, is that a motor neuron, for example, is going to release acetylcholine at the motor end plate, where you have a high concentration of acetylcholine receptors, and that will be happening in the membrane, on the surface of the skeletal muscle membrane. And that will generate an action potential which will be transmitted along that long plasma membrane, since remember the skeletal muscle cell is this kind of long fiber. Okay? And in the process, there are invaginations in this membrane, right, in this sarcolemma, okay, which are called T-tubules, all right? And the T-tubules, these sort of invaginations in the membrane, are going to contain receptors, okay, that upon arrival of the action potential are going to trigger release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum within the cell, right, which is basically the specialized endoplasmic reticulum of the skeletal muscle cell, and basically convert that electrical signal, right, that is being transmitted along the membrane into a chemical signal in the cell. Right? And so that is how you have this electrical chemical coupling of action potential transduction that turns into skeletal muscle contraction. Okay? So A is the right answer here. But let's look at the other one. So B says acetylcholine receptors on T-tubules generate localized calcium influx to initiate muscle contraction. So that's wrong, right? Because there's no acetylcholine receptors in the T-tubules. Those are mostly at the motor end plate, right? And then the other thing is that they're not really generating a localized calcium influx. That suggests calcium coming from outside the cell into the cell. Rather, what they're doing is they're basically causing receptors inside, or sorry, transport channels inside the cell in the sarcoplasmic reticulum to open, which allows good catch, which allows for calcium to escape the sarcoplasmic reticulum and enter the cytosol and increase calcium levels there. And then C, voltage-gated calcium channels in the sarcolemma propagate action potentials laterally to synchronize contraction. Okay, well, this one is wrong, okay, because first of all, there are no, it's not voltage-gated calcium channels, for one thing, that are opening in the sarcolemma to propagate it, right? And then this does not explain specifically why, how that electrical signal actually converts to a chemical signal, right? That is the propagation laterally of the action potential is important because that's how they get into the T-tubules, but it's really those T-tubules that are going to facilitate conversion of that electrical signal into the chemical signal. And then D, the sarcoplasmic reticulum generates action potentials that travel along T-tubules to the neuromuscular junction. Well, that's definitely wrong, right? Because the sarcoplasmic reticulum isn't generating action potentials, it's just releasing calcium, right? So A here is the best answer.